Good morning and welcome to my summary of how day number 1 went for the GMTK 2025 Game Jam. There ended up being 35,000 people joined. You can still join if you have not joined at this point. And the theme ended up being loop. And I like to start all of my kind of the Game Jam portions once I know the loop phase. I like to start and just kind of brainstorm like for the first like 10% of the jam. Now for a 4-day game jam, because this game jam runs from July 30th through August 3rd, so 96 hours. That would be like 9 to 10 hours of brainstorming ideas. Doesn't make as much sense. For a 48-hour game jam, it's more like 4 hours. And so I do what I normally do, and I jump in and I write the word loop, and I'm not making an incremental game, although I want to. And I just kind of explore the space, especially for something as broad as loop. What things are related to the word? What are loops? Things that have loops, things that famously don't have loops down here. And even, I think the classic thing I do is I look up the definitions and think about them. And so a loop is a structure, series, or process, the end of which is connected to the beginning. To form something into a loop or loops and circle, like a lasso, a shape produced by a curve that bends around crosses itself. And so we kind of just set on stream. The stream was absolutely a blast. If you showed up, thank you so much. I'll be live as this video comes out again, probably for 6 to 10 hours again today. I was a little tired, but I also just started drinking coffee, so that tiredness will go away and the energy level will come back up, which is that's most game jams are brought to you by coffee. If I'm going to be honest with you, right? So I just went through and we made a huge list of things that have loops, and as I kept going through there, I kept thinking which ideas, which topics, like orbits as a loop, trains, circling the drain, seasons of the year, some sort of farming game, maybe a snake sort of game. I kept rereading this list and seeing what popped out to me. And as I went through, I thought, what don't I want to make? And I don't want to make a puzzle game, a platformer, or one of those programmy instruction type games that have 4 loops or anything like that in them. Just not too interested in those. Never really have been. And I think puzzle games are interesting, although they're just so hard to make in such a short amount of time. And so what I really wanted to do is come up with an idea that doesn't need a tutorial, which probably means it's going to be easy to understand and intuitive, and a game that has a bit more thematic than just having a gameplay loop. Because if you think about it, you're like, well, what's the loop? Well, you have this gameplay loop, and you go in and do this thing, and come back and do this thing, and then you that's the theme. It's a loop. And if you want to do that for your theme, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just saying I wanted to have something a little bit more loop themed than simply going for something along the lines of, well, it has a gameplay loop, so that's my theme. If you want to just do this jam to make a game in 4 days, by all means do it. I've certainly done it before where I'm like, I don't like that theme, but I do want to make a game, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Quick little coffee break. And then somebody in chat ended up coming up with this sentence here. A little space station that loops around a planet. You need to resupply it by properly timing when to launch supplies. And so I started to think about this and work on it a little bit more. And mini motorways. I can't spell. It's too early and I'm dyslexic. Mini motorways came to mind. And it's kind of a game where an error occurred while playing this video. Come on, Steam. All right, you have these little cars, and you have to make sure that they can connect to where they need to go to work. And it's a kind of a stress simulator where you start out really simple, really easy. You make one straight road, and then over time you have to keep editing your road and editing your layout to make sure that the people get to work. And I think once all of one of these fills up and somebody can't get to work or something, you lose. And so it's kind of a score chasing game. And I thought about that as a very interesting way of having these orbits, and then slowly over time, new satellites, new space stations get launched into space. And then your job is to time and get the correct resource up to the correct orbit. for the correct space station that needs it. And then if you were to like accidentally overshoot it and say get this space station here, it might be too heavy now and then crash back down to the Earth, and then you would fail. So the original idea was you'd fail if you didn't supply something in the correct amount of time, or you'd fail if you oversupplied something. And I think that idea could still be fun and interesting, I suppose. Maybe not the fun side of it, because that's where I started like, we really dug into this idea, and I was like, let's try to evaluate this idea. Can it be made in 4 days? Yes. Could it be fun? I was kind of uncertainty. Simple to understand. Yep. And how well does it fit the themes? I think it fit decently well in the loop theme side of it. And I think this could it be fun is a hard one, because I made a similar game. Let me go over to my itch page. I made a similar game for a jam a while back where you have to fling asteroids. Let me change my sound settings quickly here. Not sound recorders, sound settings. We're doing this one shot, no editing. This is live Aramis in all its glory. You have these little asteroids. Let me refresh this. You have all these little asteroids, and you have to fling them towards a location at the right speed to be able to harvest them. That was the theme of this jam. And so the way you do that is you just fling them. And what ended up being more fun than that was flinging them at full speed, so that they would, the audio of this game is just absolutely hilarious. I got second place for this game jam with just making funny sound effects with my mouth. But what ended up being way more fun than trying to perfectly fling things was actually just flinging stuff really fast. And so this revelation of how this game worked and how the fun actually was the opposite of winning made me realize that I should not do the same mechanic twice of this kind of perfectly timed thing. So instead, I thought, what if you are defending? You're defending your base. These are not resupply launch points that you're launching, you're like grab and fling stuff out of. These are going to be places you defend, which is where I've gotten at the end of today. So at the end of day one. So you have this little launcher. It slows down when you click back and drag. You can see this little grabber, the little box down here. This is the max distance you can go, and it'll shoot out the rocket, and then the rocket will fall back to Earth. So your job is to try and aim ahead and hit the asteroid. So now, because both the Earth and this are rotating, you have to make sure you can get it just at the right amount of time. Ah, so yeah, because now you blow up your own. So it's kind of a min-max kind of situation, trying to figure out. I did it again. Min-max game of trying to figure out how to like angle these things and like maneuver around there. I decided to go with something like a score chaser, kind of like mini motorways. And I wrote this all down in a document here. And this is the next step. So once I decide to kind of go down a prototyping phase, I'll write a summary with a bulleted list that I can come back through and keep parsing and paring down. And then eventually I'll get to-do lists that are more like, what do I want to do in the next day? So this is going to be kind of the goal list for today. But the high-level summary of this is you are defending your space station from UFOs or aliens, whatever I want to call them, that are trying to abduct your astronauts. You do this by shooting rockets from launch sites on your planet. You start with one launch site, and over time you'll get more and more locations. So right now you only have one, but maybe eventually there will be 6. The way it's going to work is that when you shoot a rocket, only one rocket can be coming from a launch site at once. So you'll have used this one. Once that rocket blows up, this will then get a new rocket and you'll be able to use it. So there's going to be a bunch of like, how do I communicate that to the player effectively? And then eventually you'll have a bunch of launch sites that you can try to like, okay, well, I don't want to go from here. Let me cancel that one and let me go from somewhere else. And I guess there's a bug here where I can orbit around my planet in a fun way. Create a little, look, there's almost an infinity loop there. Perfect. That's the theme is loop, right? What else? You once a rocket is fired from sight, there's a short cooldown. Yep. Over time, more satellites and space stations will go into orbit. So just like that mini motorways, eventually there's going to be a bunch of space stations flying around and stuff like that. You're going to gain score every time a given object rotates the planet. So realistically, the balance should be that you passively are going to be getting points based off of how many objects you've kept in space, and you'll lose points as the UFOs abduct your astronauts. Perhaps if they abduct it, you lose, game over, or or perhaps it is just a huge, maybe it resets your score and there's a huge punishment for doing it. Because at the end of the day, I want to have a 5-timer game. As I talked about, so one of my big tips is to try to make your Game Jam game playable in 5 minutes. And so a great way to do that is to simply make there be a 5-minute timer that says, here's how long the game is going to be. You put a countdown timer. It gives the rater an idea that I'm at least going to get to the end of this game. And then I, as a balancer and developer, can try to balance the game so it slowly ramps up over time. There's about a 10-minute video at this point. We're getting long. The funny thing about this game was that I got lost after about hour 5 of working on this last night. I got lost in trying to make these rockets feel good. And I'm trying not to necessarily use, like, it says no generative AI, especially for art and audio assets, but I also want to try to do this without the help of AI for coding. And turns out I used to have a good physics brain. I used to have a good math brain. But it turns out that just isn't the case as much anymore. And so there's a significant portion of this stream where I was monkeying around with thrust and dot products and square roots of gravity and stuff. And I finally ended up with something nice and simple where I'm just kind of pulling the rocket back down in the direction to the center because I'm sitting in the middle there. So yesterday's stream ended up being one of my best streams of all time. I'm pretty sure, with a max viewer count of 159, an average view count of 108. Absolutely insane. Again, I'll be live right after the stream goes live, working on day number 2, getting down kind of the rest of the mechanics here, where I'm trying to get the AI set up for the enemies and the rockets and the score mechanics and all that fun stuff. And then once this is kind of set in stone and done, we'll start polishing the crap out of this game, because I think what's gonna make this game feel really, really good is when there's great sound effects, there's great animations, there's great particles and stuff flying around, and maybe we can even get to the point where we have different enemy types, and it should be a great time. I have been Aramis. Thank you so much for watching. Keep an eye out for my summary tomorrow on how today is gonna go for me. And without further ado, I don't know, just good luck. Have a good one. I'll see you later. Bye bye.